It's no secret that Sony has been having a bit of a hard time lately. It seems their efforts to launch their own superhero franchise have not exactly worked out for the best, as they sought to try and compete with the likes of Disney and Warner Brothers. I'm going to be quite honest here. The Sony villain Spider-Verse isn't a franchise I've bothered with much at all. I saw the first Venom back in the day, but that's about it. The films as a whole just never interested me. Maybe because they would have needed to actually include Spider-Man to get me hooked. Though I really need to watch Madam Web as soon as I get the chance. I'm up for a good laugh. But the point is, Sony have seen nothing but box office disappointment after disappointment. Venom, Morbius and Madam Web were received poorly by critics and audiences alike. And with the release of Kraven the Hunter, the subject of today's video, which flopped in its opening weekend, it looks like their franchise plans may unfortunately be coming to a close. So, spoilers ahead for Kraven the Hunter. If you haven't watched it and intend on seeing it, I would suggest you do that first, then come back and watch my review. The film follows Sergei Kravenov, the son of a Russian drug lord who is attacked by a lion while hunting in Africa. A girl called Calypso shows up exactly at the right place and the right time and heals him with some magic voodoo serum. This gives him superhuman abilities that resemble the traits of wild animals. He subsequently runs away from his father after becoming disillusioned with him and takes on the name Kraven the Hunter. He dedicates himself to hunting down poachers and wealthy crime bosses, including one that leads him to cross paths with Calypso again, who is now a lawyer in London. His brother Dmitri then gets kidnapped by his father's enemy, the Rhino, who looks like this, and Sergei has to go save him with Calypso. That's it. That's the film. Oh, and his brother is also another Spider-Man villain called the Chameleon. This guy is a supervillain. Yeah, pretty convincing. I will start off by saying that Kraven the Hunter was not the worst film in the world. It was pretty much just meh, a typical popcorn flick. I could tell going into it that the filmmakers had no idea what the heck they were doing. The whole film reeked of repeated reshoots and editing dilemmas. And I can tell you from experience, there's nothing worse than being a film editor struggling to make footage A fit with footage B, even though both are crap, and it would be better to just bin them instead and either do more reshoots or scrap that entire segment. There was a 2-year delay with Kraven the Hunter, and it really shows. The only saving grace of this film was perhaps the opening prison break scene. The assassination of the gangster was a brutal moment that set the tone for, I suppose, what was meant to be a good old R-rated action film about a morally ambiguous vigilante. But alas. Aaron Taylor-Johnson wasn't particularly convincing at Sergei, aka Kraven. He kinda just looked like he wandered onto the wrong film set most of the time. He just looked kinda lost. But I will give him credit, this guy got ripped for the part and I have to respect that. He looks really, really good. Kraven may not have had that much of a personality, but at least he was the perfect image of an uber macho muscular guy with superhuman powers. Aaron Taylor-Johnson looked very convincing and it's clear he prepped hard for the role. Russel Crowe was also good, as always, in his role as the father of Sergei. I think no matter how bad the script is, Crowe always shows up to do what he does best, which is knock everyone out of the park. But otherwise, I found the talent in the acting department to be lacking. Additionally, I liked the fact that there wasn't any political in-your-face messaging in the film. Like, sure, there was a bit of a conservationist element going on with Sergei hunting down poachers, but that kind of went nowhere, really. It was just very unimportant. And there was also a subplot about his relationship with his gangster father and how he was pushing his sons to become merciless killers like him. I liked the theme going on there, how despite Kraven's efforts to run away and be the opposite of what he was expected to become, he ends up becoming exactly what his father was shaping him up to be anyway. Regardless of whatever noble intentions he had, he became a purebred killer, and the final scene hits that nail on the head. The good news is that there also weren't any shoved-in scenes where the priestess character lectures Kraven about his internalized sexism or how she's better than all men or takes down 50 muscular men easily all at once, which is a type of dialogue Hollywood loves to shove into their films for no other reason except to try to make the male character look like an idiot. I know she does kill one of the villains with her crossbow despite the audience not seeing her do anything that proves to us she is an amazing archer, except for that shoved in dialogue about her going to camp or something. But I'm not really fussed about that because it's not a particularly relevant moment. Now, onto the things that I disliked about this film, and believe me, there's a long list. The film itself is weirdly disjointed, with characters hopping in and out whenever the plot needed them to. Again, you could tell there was a ton of reshoots that were done. A lot of scenes did not fit in together, and it really made for a bizarre watch. There is this one scene I remember where Calypso and Kraven are about to get on a plane, and she says something like, "I have a bad feeling about this," in just about the flattest and most boredom-inducing tone possible. Like, the same way you would say, "I have to go shopping," or "I have to go clean the toilet." The editing team were probably wringing their hands trying to make the blah scenes fit together. Aaron Taylor-Johnson's acting was pretty mid as well. Sure, he looked the part, I guess, but he just felt very wooden a lot of the time. And I feel like with better direction, maybe he could have pulled it off, but who knows. The villains were truly awful. Like, so bad. Like, really, really bad. That Rhino Man made weird noises at random moments throughout the film, and it just sent me and my friends into fits of giggles in the cinema. He was boring and non-threatening, and as for the final act, that was truly atrocious. The CGI for Rhino Man was an absolute eyesore. I didn't know what I was looking at, but it made me want to sink into the ground from cringe. Otherwise, Rhino Man lacked nuance and personality. I barely knew anything about him except that he hated Kraven's dad and wanted revenge because of that one time he got talked down to. He had nothing going for him and was about as forgettable as the stale cracker at the bottom of the empty cookie jar. The same goes for every other bad guy that wandered in. None of them felt like they fitted into the story at all. The only interesting villain was Russel Crowe's character, but even he felt like a mismatched addition to the film. He sort of just comes in to lecture his sons about becoming real men and then vanishes again. The brother was also extremely flat as a character. There was a kernel of an arc going on where he feels immense pressure to live up to his father's expectations and to become as ruthless as he is, but I couldn't even root for him when he got kidnapped because no time was spent developing these characters at all. I just didn't care about anyone or whether or not they lived or died. Another significant character, Calypso, the voodoo priestess / lawyer / archer, also had a serious lack of nuance and was as interesting as a piece of cardboard. Her character was just all over the place, and I wasn't sure what she was supposed to be. Just someone who pops in to give Sergei the magic serum that gives him superpowers and then pops back in whenever the plot needs her to. Like how she just so happens to be working as a lawyer in London, exactly where Kraven's family live. Convenient. I think she was supposed to be some kind of love interest for Kraven, but again, that went absolutely nowhere. Plus, Ariana DeBose's chemistry with Taylor-Johnson was pretty much non-existent. Again, quick reminder, it is meant to be a villain origin story. But it felt nothing like that. Now listen, I know I haven't seen most of their films, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But the main problem with Sony, in my opinion, and the reason for their lack of success, critically and financially, is that they couldn't allow their villains to just be, well, villains. Kraven the Hunter didn't feel like a villain origin story. Anti-hero at best perhaps, but even that is debatable. Sorry, but I'm gonna need more than poacher, assassin, and childhood daddy issues to be convinced that this character is supposed to be morally ambiguous. Kraven in this film lacked clear direction, and it's obvious that the filmmakers were utterly lost when it came to deciding what type of character they were trying to create. There's nothing complex about him, he is just this flat character who hops around the film and does whatever the plot needs him to do. He doesn't feel like a hero, and he most certainly doesn't feel like an anti-hero or a future villain for Spider-Man to fight. Look, if you're gonna do a villain origin story, then give me an actual villain. Give me the baddest, most despicable, most complex individuals possible. Hollywood is severely lacking writers who can make good villain characters, in my opinion. I would love to see film studios, including Sony, do villain spin-off films. But it's clear that the people they are hiring to write these films are afraid to make the characters authentic, despicable, fleshed out villains, or maybe that's the studios interfering. As a case in point, Azula from Avatar The Last Airbender is one of the best written villains that has ever been put to screen. You hate her, but you kinda love her at the same time. She is insane, calculating, but also vulnerable in many ways. I'd certainly watch a spin-off film about her. All in all, Kraven the Hunter is just a typical popcorn flick. It's not the worst thing ever put to the silver screen, but my gosh, the standard at Sony is truly at its low point. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. See you later.